Well, welcome. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I am really excited and humbled that you chose to spend some of your valuable time of that day here with us. Always like to give you really great content to make it worthwhile. And today you are in for a treat. Lots of valuable nuggets going to be coming your way. We're going to be talking with Dawn Mahan about negotiating people, power, and project success. Or maybe we could have called it from chaos to collaboration. So, welcome, Dawn. I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks so much, Cindy. I'm excited to be here. And congratulations on hundreds of episodes now. Amazing.
It's hard to believe. I tell you, time flies. And for those of you who may not know Dawn, she's an award-winning consultant, an international speaker, and the founder of PMOtraining.com. And she's trained thousands of professionals worldwide, advising C-suite leaders and project managers across multiple industries. And the thing that attracted me is she brings a really refreshing new perspective to project management. And particularly, you see that with her book, Meet the Players in Project Land. I think the subtitles Decide the Right Project Roles and Get People on Board. And the thing that stood out about it is that instead of sort of dry technical jargon, which we often see in project management, Dawn introduces animal avatars and storytelling to make complex project roles really easy to grasp and, more importantly, easy to implement. So I'm always looking for fresh new ways to sort of approach business and leadership and negotiations. So today we're going to be exploring how to understand people, roles, and dynamics, and how they can make or break a project, and how you can use those insights in your own negotiations, whether you're leading a boardroom initiative or organizing even a community project. So why don't we jump in, Dom? What inspired you to create Meet the Players in Project Land, and in particular, why did you choose to use animal avatars to explain the rules?
Well, thank you so much for highlighting that it's a fresh perspective because that's really one of the ideas that we're going for in Project Guru Press is to really bring fun,
Yeah.
newbie friendly material to people because project management usually is so dry and it just doesn't need to be that way. I
Yeah.
have a million stories from the trenches. And so the inspiration really for the book started probably back in about 2010 in Chicago when I was in front of a room of wide-eyed, very experienced professionals who were struggling to learn about what I call project land or the
Yeah.
world of projects. And they were great at operations. And so one of the gentlemen in the class who had been at that company for over 20 years looked up at me and said, "Where's the book?" And it was my turn to be like, "What? What are you talking about?" And and so I said, "Jermaine, what do you mean?" And he said, I want the book. I want the book with all the stories you tell, all the tips. I want it on my desk. Where is the book? And so he planted a seed that day.
I
And
love
he,
that.
and so in 2024, we released my first book. We have another one in the works, which I'm excited to tell you about a little later
Good.
and get your take on it. And I realized that the animal avatars that I had been using in speaking engagements we're really helping people understand how the
Yeah.
humans operate and negotiate their way through project land.
Yeah. I love it. I think it was a stroke of genius, and it really is in line with sort of the idea behind the art of feminine negotiation, which is about we have to find new ways to do things, right? We have to find better approaches that aren't based on that old, overly testosterone driven, beat your chest, kind of. And I've had a number of people pitch for project management, but it's like, oh my God, put me to sleep. So you're
Ah,
definitely fresh. So
thank
you
you.
talk about other than the way that you teach it, how does your actual approach to project management differ maybe from some of those traditional methods?
Well, I'd say it's human first.
Yes.
And most people in my world are talking about process and tools. There are over 100 tools on the market, all claiming to solve all your problems on projects. None of them do without people.
Yes.
Process is also, I mean, it turns out that my research shows, and I talk about it in Meet the Players in Project Land in the beginning to really set the stage, most projects fail.
Yeah.
Statistics show that most projects fail. That's terrible because
Yeah.
then people feel like
Yeah.
failures, even though they were not set up for success in the beginning. And so I thought, let's take a human first approach, but use animals to help illustrate the crazy ways that people operate
Yeah.
when they're under stress and in
Yeah.
fear, which is often how people feel when the clock is ticking and they're trying to negotiate their way through this uncharted terrain, because the truth is that projects are unique, meaning
Yeah.
nobody in the history world has ever done this before in this time, in this
Yeah.
place, or with these people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And it's so funny. I was smiling when you said about it's a human first approach and I use animals because I literally just posted online because I'm dog sitting for my son and we've got a German Shepherd. So I've got like three dogs running around the house here, one of whom is blind and suffered from diabetes. And I was watching the dynamics and thinking, God, we could learn a lot as humans watching animals. So it's interesting that you use that. But I also want to take a beat for our listeners and really let that settle about the human first approach. Because I'm not going to get into politics, but suffice it to say today, we seem to be moving away from that human centered approach. And again, it's one of the reasons I started Art of Feminine Negotiation is to recognize how important it is to have rapport and connection and empathy and to be able to bring all of these things together and to approach every negotiation from that human centered point of view. Even when you're dealing with bullies, right? There's something that's causing that human behavior. And when you look behind, sort of the facts or the issues or what you think you want or what you think they want and get behind the humanity of it, we often are able to find better solutions. So I love your approach, Dawn. And now
Thank
you
you.
said that people are the linchpin of any project. And you said you love storytelling. So can you share maybe a story where clarifying roles or responsibilities was able to transform the outcome?
Yes, it happens all the time where we are asked to come into organizations like the one in Chicago,
Yeah.
where people are maybe new to project land or they think they know project land, but they don't really. And, we have egos. I heard in another episode of yours that we talk about egos a little bit and how, yeah, we all have egos. And it's true. I have an ego. I'm sure everybody really does about certain things, that we think that we're good at and that we know. And in corporate situations, it's the environment tends to be a pressure cooker
Yeah.
where people operate under fear and under stress, and they're asked to perform at their best inside a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a great environment to be in, is it?
Yeah.
So anyway, with that context, so here's a situation. I had this gentleman who was very skeptical about the project management office. We were brand new to the scene in this
Yeah.
Fortune 500 company. There were PhDs in engineering running all around.
Uh-oh.
Right. This was a tech director, and he was very, very skeptical about it. However, he had a project that could not fail.
Yeah.
And so he came to me and said, I need a project manager for the project. I said, great. So when I signed the project manager, I took her into my office, closed the door, and said, not only will you manage this project, but your job is to turn this guy's mindset around
Nice.
about project management and how it is there to help him. It is an enabler. We're going to make him look like a superstar.
Yeah.
He thinks we are order takers. He thinks we are stenographers. He
Yeah.
thinks we are admin assistants. We are leaders, and you're going to show him. I
Yeah.
said, are you up for the challenge? And I knew she was. And she was like, oh, yeah. And so we turned his mindset around
Yeah.
in that project, made him look like a superstar, delivered the thing. And wouldn't you know, when he left that company, he called me specifically and said, I put my big foot in my mouth and I need your help over here at this new place. And I was like, yes.
That's awesome. You gotta love that. It's funny you talk about egos at the beginning because I often refer to it as like bumper car egos, right? Like our egos are just constantly bumping into each other, and ego shows up differently for all of us. So I love that. Now, in your experience, what are some of the most common pitfalls that teams face in project management, and how can we negotiate around them before they derail success? As you said, most projects, sadly, are not successful.
That's right. Well, my book, Meet the Players in Project Land, explains every single player. Just like any sports team, I played a bunch of sports. I love sports. Not everybody's into it.
Yeah.
But even if you didn't play sports, if you think about the orchestra Like we have, I played the flute also.
Yeah.
The flautists are called flautists and they all sit together, right? And so I found that one of the first things is to just make it clear.
Yeah.
Who do you need? Why do you need them? What role do you want them to be in? Most people want to do a good job,
Yeah.
but they can't do a good job if you don't tell them what's expected of them. Why are they there? Why them? Why not somebody else? Why not have a conversation with the person and
Yeah.
say, I specifically asked for you because.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
so the first part is role clarity. Why are they there? What are you expecting from them? And each player in Project Land, from the executive that I mentioned earlier, the project manager, sometimes there are no project manager named. And we go in and assess organizations. I'll be like, well, who's the project manager? I'll be like, I don't
I
know.
don't know.
What?
Yeah.
So if you want your project to succeed, assign one project manager. If you've got a vendor, the vendor might have a project manager, the client might have a project manager, and then they have to work together to make it happen. But the client project manager has to be the superseded project manager, right? Because
Yeah.
somebody's got to make the call. You can't have two captains of the ship.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that in some cases, for instance, the vendor is like the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah.
And I've been on both sides. So no, I'm not knocking anything. I've been the consultant, project manager, representing a team, a technical team, and then I've been on the inside as well and had to hire vendors to work with us. And but the vendor is getting paid by the client.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who's in charge, right? Let's, just follow the money trail.
Yeah. And I assume know who you're dealing with. Like, one of my models, I call it the 5W model. It's like who, what, where, when, why. And I was
Yes.
chuckling when you were saying about, and I'm dealing with engineers and dealing with whatever, or the person that you would assign. Because my husband was a pipe fitter by trade, and
Ooh,
he used to always, and he'd handle really big industrial projects. And, we had that good eye where he'd come in and I mean, he still amazes me in terms of he'll come into a room of any size and be able to tell you what the measurements of the room are within. I'm talking like a millimeter, like it's ridiculous, right? A
wow.
ridiculous eye. But he'd end up having to butt up against these engineers all the time. And he was very charming and able to sort of manage it. But knowing who within all of those various roles you're dealing with, and by that I mean personality, is that
Yes.
something that you factor in? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I have some evil personas in the book that talk about some of these personalities that we discover over and over and over again in
Nice.
Project Land.
Yeah.
And so, yes. So, for instance, the Valley of Indecision dweller. Like the person that lives in this valley of indecision, they can't seem to make a decision
Yeah.
because they can't get 100% of the facts. Meanwhile, in Project Land, you're in a pressure cooker, the clock is ticking, somebody wants this to be delivered remotely on time, please, and you have to make a decision. And so, yeah, so that's just one example of one of the personas, but personalities do absolutely come into it so
Yeah.
well. And see, you mentioned that your husband was charming.
Yeah.
Well, he must be charming if he's your husband,
Yeah.
but he must be. But a little bit of charm goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not an authentic charm. I mean, not this
Yeah.
other kind.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, it goes a long way. And because it's all about teamwork.
Yeah.
You're pulling in projects, you tend to pull experts from all over the organization, put them together in a room. They have to meet each other for the first time.
Yeah.
The whole psychology step ladder of forming, storming, norming,
Yeah.
performing, and then in Project Land, adjourning and even mourning can
Yeah.
happen because the project better end
Yeah.
as part of this. The old definition of projects are temporary, they must end.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't factor in the psychology enough.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned authenticity as well, because I think we live in a society where, the whole Instagram lifestyle, there's so much lack of authenticity, and sadly it's becoming more and more normalized. So yeah, absolutely. Authenticity, being yourself, and that's not to say like definitely work at being the best version of yourself. I was laughing when you said about indecision because, having been a lawyer for 30 years, I'm like, boom, 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 right? I
Sure.
move quickly, decisions get made quickly. And, when I'm involved in a lot of community projects, and everybody's trying to be so accommodating and gracious. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I really have to Again, get yourself in the headspace at first, recognize who you're dealing with, and be able to come in and meet everybody's needs and give them comfort while sort of pushing the valley of indecision dweller to a decision. So, and
Yes.
speaking of that sort of, pushing's perhaps the wrong word, because I think getting people on board in
Hmm.
healthy ways can be one of the hardest parts of any project. So,
Yes.
I call them negotiation strategies. What tactic strategies have you found to be most effective in rallying support, especially in high stress environments, but not necessarily?
Well, one of the key techniques is a kickoff meeting. And so once you think you have everybody aligned on what the objectives are, what are we trying to accomplish, and the executive is the one that says, that's the mountain we're going to climb.
Yeah.
That's the mountain, not that one over there. That's the one.
Yeah.
And that's when the executive can stand up working side by side with the project manager to prepare the team
Yeah.
for this is the journey we're going on. This is why you're here. This is why this is important. Answer all those questions. This is who is around the table. This is the team. We're going to
Yeah.
create this healthy environment that gets results as opposed to the other kind.
Yeah.
And really set the team up for success.
Yeah.
There might be a little bit of rah-rah, but it's really about being honest about what
Yeah.
we know and what we don't know.
Yeah.
Because our engineers, God love them, I have a mathematics degree. They were screwing up my math classes all the time with practical applications. I know them well. I love my engineers, but they have a lot of detailed questions. Well, how, do you really want the catapult to go 537 feet and the sponsors like, oh, are you kidding me? And so this is why we need great project managers
Yeah.
who can navigate the humans and the concerns and all the questions and say, hey, we're going to figure that out in step 43 as to how far it's really going to go. And here's how we're going to figure it out. What do you think? Do you think that'll work?
Yeah.
And really creating that healthy culture of listening, which I know is a huge part of negotiating,
Yeah.
is really listening and helping people feel as though they're valued and heard, even though you have to make a call.
Yeah. Yeah. And for our listeners, I want to be clear if you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not a project manager, I'm not in an environment where we have every activity you do requires some type of project management. Again, whether it's a bake sale at the kids' school or, putting up a community playground, or whether it's in an office environment or your more traditional sort of big construction or industrial projects, it's all a form of project management. You're managing, heck, we manage projects within our family dynamics as well. So as you're listening to this, be thinking about it on the professional level, and also be grabbing those nuggets that we're getting from Dawn here that you can apply in your other projects in your life as well.
I
And
love it that you said that. And I love it because I have a practical project leadership course, and I start it with welcome to Project Land. Guess what? This is a skill that's going to help you in your personal life
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Because if you've ever planned a vacation, that's a project. If you've ever had to plan a surprise party,
yeah,
that's a project. If you've ever had to move cities or move homes,
yes,
those are projects.
yeah,
And I had a friend who got married within the past few years. And some of the tips that I gave her when we were having a couple
yeah.
beverages, it wasn't coffee, although we love that too. And she was like, I can't believe that he just wants to invite some of the guys over and have like hot dogs and hamburgers at the wedding and then go on to Fiji for
Yeah.
vacation. She's like, I have waited 40 years for this man. I am going to have the Italian wedding of my
Yeah.
dreams. And so I was like, oh, you are negotiating your expectations about the future of this future
Yeah.
imagination you have. It's just in your imagination
Yeah.
with this man you want to spend the rest of your life with. And
Yeah.
I'm like, so what you're saying is quality is number one for you. And what he's saying is quality is number five for him. He just wants to marry his sweetheart. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't care how it goes or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know this guy is so sweet. And yeah, he wants to have an epic I said, can you have both? And she's like, we're gonna have both. I said, okay. It's gonna be okay.
I love that. There's your well, you're going to tell us about your next book, but that this can be your book after that book as well, about
Yes,
the project management that we require in our day-to-day life or family. You
there
can
you
have a whole
go.
series, project management in the household, project management of the wedding, right? You could, so now how obviously getting your book is one way and it's sort of a key component, but how can professionals ensure that every team member understands and embraces their project role? And again, whether we're talking professionally or across the board, what are some ideas around that?
Yeah, so in the team is clearly important and one of the players, and we have three animal avatars for the team members. You have to know who you are in there. Are you really there for your strength?
Yeah,
That's the bison.
yeah,
Are you really there for your speed because your work style or your expertise allows you to help the team go fast?
yeah,
That's the gazelle. Or are you there because you love people, you love to have fun while you get work done, and you love to help people prepare for the change that the project brings?
yeah,
That's the dolphin, right? You got
yeah,
to navigate all those waters. So if you're a team member on a project, and we're all team members for different things, like you said, volunteering or, at the school or whatever, and in a family, you're a team member too. So I feel like if you think about your strengths
yeah,
and what you can bring to the team above and beyond just your expertise, that can really help you to become the best version of yourself.
yeah,
To be like, when people say to me, they love it that I like to have fun and get work done. Like my friend is so brilliant. He's a chemical engineer, actually, but he's also this photographer and he's got this wild mind that works on both
yeah,
sides of his brain and he has the best laugh. We
yeah,
have so much fun working together. And it's like, I always want him on my team. How
yeah.
can you be the person that somebody always wants you on their team? If you're that person, you will never be unemployed ever.
That's such great advice. Such great advice. And I can see how the animals, they really do work, Dawn, right? Like as soon as you said the bison, I had a picture of it. You said the gazelle, I can picture it. And I'm sorry, I digress there because I laugh every time I hear gazelle now. I don't know if you know that female comedian who she's like quite the feminist and she has that whole shtick about the gazelle in the bar scene. And again, it's obviously a metaphor for women being sort of chased by the male predator. It's hilarious if you haven't seen
Oh,
it.
I have to find that.
It's so funny. So now how do I mentioned in the intro that you've trained thousands of professionals worldwide. So how do you adapt your methods? And again, for our listeners, you may have this issue because, in today's world, we deal across, different cultures and industries and more. So how do you cross those bridges? What advice do you have for that?
Well, I would say two things. Well, maybe three. First, research.
Yeah.
So know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Two is listening. Again, there it is again, listening. So really, and listening is very, very active if you're if you find yourself in a different country or culture or, even work culture if you get a new job, you're listening for, well, what works here? How really do they get work done
Yeah.
here? And really, I think trust.
Mm,
So if you really portray yourself as a person who cares about people, who wants to trust people, who is open to showing people that you're a trustworthy person versus you cross your arms and you're
yeah.
standoffish and what do you look like? What's your approach? And when you open your body and you smile, there's a quote from I think it's Crosby, Stills and Nash. I used to have a t-shirt that says something like, a smile is universal. It's everybody understands what it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone, babies, dogs, everyone can tell if your smile is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like, to the first part is trust. I mean, when I'm on a stage, people are assessing you very, very quickly. And
Yes.
do I want to listen
In
to this woman?
seconds. Yeah. It's
Seconds,
true.
milliseconds even.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
I want to listen to this woman? Do I want to take any of the advice she has?
Yeah.
Do I trust that she's going to give me good advice?
Yeah.
I certainly am going to do my darndest.
Yeah.
But people don't know me.
Yeah.
If people don't know me, then they're not sure.
Yeah.
So it helps to have, You read my bio, for instance, which is which is the truth. And I find a lot of people are sharing a lot of things that are untrue, and you have
Yes.
to fact check
Yes.
everything. And it's
Yeah.
such a shame. It's such a
Yeah.
shame.
And we're seeing more of that, sadly. We've all been apparently granted permission to just say that. So, but I want to really allow something to settle. That when you started that, when you gave that sort of three-part answer, and I thought it's brilliant, Dawn, and it's so simple and it's common sense, and yet we don't see it enough. When you're building any sort of relationship, whether, and I think it's one of the reasons why we're seeing negotiations and relationships fall apart personally, professionally, globally today. Do your homework, right? Do research and listen. For the love of God, in North America, we are not taught to listen well. We're constantly waiting for our turn to speak. We wrongly believe that the person speaking the loudest and the longest is winning, whatever that means, in a negotiation. And we're not really open to other perspectives, and that doesn't build trust. And part
No.
of building trust is giving trust. So, and again, not to get political, but if we look back even at the beginning of COVID, like my gosh, there were legitimate positions across the spectrum, but nobody was willing to listen to each other. Everybody needed to be so certain about the rightness of their position. We're seeing it on the political scene today. We see it in global conflicts as well. Everybody's so some are playing out in real time with devastating consequences today because nobody is truly seeking to understand the perspective of the people across the table, across the border, whatever it is. So thank you for sharing that. And I really, sorry to go on, but for our listeners, I want to put a pin in just how important that is. So thank you for that.
Thank
Now, I
you.
want to circle back on to the storytelling piece because I know it plays a big role in your approach.
It
And I feel
does.
like it's an art we're missing. Everybody's so straight to business that storytelling is a beautiful way to connect. So I'm interested in your thoughts on why narrative is so powerful in project management, in negotiation, in life, frankly.
Of course, stories are the way that our ancient cave people brains
Yeah.
learned.
Yeah.
There were no TVs, there was nothing but stories around the campfire. And so if we go back to basics, stories are really where people learn.
Yeah.
And in project land, because a project is unique and it's the first time in the history of the world anybody's done this before, you have to come up with a way to explain the vision you have for this new world. So, there's some current, the way you always pitch a project is there's some current state that's unacceptable. There's some future state that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then the project is going to get you somewhere from where we are today to where we're going.
Yeah.
And how are you going to explain that to people if you can't tell a story? And it all starts with what are we seeing today that's unacceptable?
Yeah.
And can we put a face on that? Can we say, Nancy just last week was beating her head against a brick wall trying to get this vendor to do this
Yeah.
thing, right? And so if we change this process in the future, Nancy's head will be fine. It will
Yeah.
not be bleeding. It will be wonderful. And so will everybody else. That won't think that'd be great. And Nancy's like, here, here, please, no more bleeding forehead. And and so you start to create this vision in people's minds that says, yes, I want to be on that train. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that crew that climbs
Yeah.
that mountain. Let's do it. I would love to have that envisioned future.
Yeah. And it humanizes it, right? I mean, you going back to what you were saying earlier about bringing the humanity to it. I think through storytelling, we humanize it. And I can vouch for that. I will say, like in my book, I've got a whole book there to feminine negotiation about negotiating. And yet it's interesting you say that, Don, because the thing that people most seem to remember and comment on is this one little section where I share a story about my daughter who needed open heart surgery as an infant and how I had to negotiate those life or death moments in the hospital. That stuck more than any of the didactic stuff I threw in the book, right? So,
Sure.
uh,
Right. And that's especially when a story can pull at your heart.
yeah,
When my heart just leapt out of my chest for you, just thinking about, I can't even imagine that situation. So if you have a story that can really connect with someone's heart,
yeah,
more than their heads, it's even
Yeah.
better. Now, some projects and corporations are all about the money.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to connect with somebody's heart when it's really all
Yeah.
about the money. However, for-profit companies are in it for the money. I mean, Fortune 500 companies have to report to the street every quarter. I mean, it's just part of the way it works.
Yeah.
And so we still need to tell stories about, okay, then the people, for instance, a project that is going to make life easier inside the company so people aren't doing some of this rote work, that they could
Yeah.
be doing more highly strategic work that would be better, or they would make their
Yeah.
life easier, or they don't have to, beat their head against the brick wall anymore, or whatever. And if you make it about the people and not the money,
Yeah.
it can be so much more easy for people, so much easier for people to say, yes, I want to help with that. And in the old days, and when I started my career, you didn't get a choice.
Yeah.
And it still happens where you don't get a choice. You don't feel like you have a choice. You're assigned the project, right? Like you're assigned, you're going to do this thing, and that's how it's going to be. But let's be honest, we can always choose to not go to work that day or not show
Yeah.
up fully or not, or be disengaged, which a lot of statistics are talking about
Yes.
employee disengagement. So we do have choices and we do exercise those choices. We could just up and leave this company and go to another one, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like we have to, as leaders or as anyone who wants to be on a great team, even if you're not a leader and you just want to be on a great team, how are you going to negotiate the terrain that you're in with the people that you're in it with?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's funny, I'm glad you mentioned about the money because we are so conditioned to believe that everything is about the money. And today, again, we're seeing a real resurgence of that about where it's all. But in my experience, when you really dig down, it's almost never actually just about the money for the reasons you've just said. We're all humans interacting, right? It's not, we are the humans that make up these corporations, and the corporation may believe it's all about the money, but it's for the individuals, it's what that money means to them. It might be about status, it might be about respect, it might be what, and we're seeing a lot more corporations now recognize that when you come from a value driven kind of perspective, when you get people on board on your teams caring about the project, caring about what you're delivering, you get better outcomes and you actually end up making more money as a result of that. So I'm so glad you honed in on that.
Thank
And
you.
what would you say is the biggest misconception about project management? Sort of a myth that you'd love to bust wide open.
Well, that it's all about the process and the tools.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and that's the reason, that was really the reason why I started this first book experience, because I knew there would be more with the people
Yeah.
side. So
Yeah.
that's really the myth busting, and that project managers are, as part of that whole process and tool focus that a lot of people like to think about for project managers, that they're really the order takers or the checklist checker offers, or the people that don't really care about people. They just care about the budget and the time and whatever. Because in my experience, the best project managers care deeply about the people.
Yeah. And have to. I mean, and we see that's not always the case, sadly, right? Where they're so focused, as you say, on the money that they don't take care of the people. And invariably, those are the projects that tend to fall apart. So now you'd mentioned about the book, and that reminds me, I know I can't believe how quick our time has gone here together. You wanted to mention about your next book, so do tell.
Yes, well, this is going to be another fun one. This one's called Project Land Goes to the Movies. So I think I love movies, and my partner in all things writing, Jerry Manis, also an expert in Project Land, he also loves movies. And so we put our heads together and said, what if we got authors from across the Project Land universe
Yeah.
and beyond to write a chapter, each of them write a chapter on their favorite movie and lesson that will help professionals navigate projects.
That's so good.
And just for you, Cindy, I'm going to reveal for the first time ever that one of these chapters is about negotiation.
Very cool. Oh my gosh, I love that. And there's so many great movies that you could point to for that. That's fabulous. I love it. You
Yes.
know?
Yeah, we're so excited about this one because it does bring a lot of different voices, perspectives, experiences from around the world together in one place to make it, again, try to be fun and accessible for newbies and experienced folks alike that need to navigate this wild world called projects.
Yeah. Oh, such a brilliant. I love your approach, like with the animals, makes sense. As soon as you said movies, I'm thinking, Thelma and Louise, so many scenes about, negotiation life or the devil's advocate, and also ways not to negotiate, right? I mean,
Yes.
what's that new sitcom, that not a sitcom, sorry, the series, Man in Full or something with Jeff Daniels in it, but sadly, I think some people are going to see it as a commendation for that big, tough, bullying kind of approach. But oh my God, the message was so clear that that approach is a flawed way to negotiate in business and in life. So
Wow.
brilliant concept. I love it. Can't wait for it. We'll have to have you back when that comes out.
Well, that would be wonderful. Thank
I
you so much.
love that. And I normally like to end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts you've had in your life? It doesn't have to be about project management, just one of those aha moments for you.
When I first learned about the word authenticity, I was like, that's what I've been looking for all my life
Yeah.
because I've always been a little weird. I've always felt a little weird, a little oddball, always the guinea pig and stuff. And authenticity, I thought, wow, this is wonderful. What a wonderful, beautiful word that represents what I hope for everyone.
Oh, I love that. And I love that we talked about it earlier too, that it worked its way organically into the
It
conversation.
did.
So where can people learn more about you, Dawn?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Dawn, Dawn like the sunrise, even though I'm a night owl. Mahan, Mahan. So find me on LinkedIn. Tell me that you heard our conversation and what you might have taken away from it, but definitely connect with me. That's one way. But if you want a free sample of the book, the biggest free sample out on the interwebs, go to projectgurupress.com/sample and you can get it delivered to you right this moment.
Fabulous. And we will make sure to put that in the show notes. So don't panic if you happen to be listening to this while you're working out and you're on a treadmill or you're driving. We'll make sure to include that all in the show notes so that you can come back. And thank you so much, Dawn. It's been a great conversation. You're just a delight to deal with. And I love your approach to project management and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It was such a pleasure. And I'll look forward to hearing more episodes from you and your crew too.
Yes, and we look forward to having you back. And for our listeners, oh my gosh, there was so much value here. Again, whether you are a project manager or whether you don't realize you're a project manager and all of the ways that you can apply it in your life. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that yet, but also give the gift of sharing. Make sure to share this episode with other people in your life so they can get some of the value from the golden nuggets that got dropped here today. And before we sign off today, if this episode maybe lit a little fire in you and you recognize you want to stop playing small and start negotiating a bigger, better life, then feel free to come and check out what we offer here. I've got one-on-one, group, or signature VIP or mastermind programs. So let's tap into that feminine power of yours and start getting more of what you want and deserve without apology. If you're in and that sounds interesting, go to artoffemininenegotiation.com to check it out. And speaking of that, if you have not grabbed a copy of my book yet, grab that, The Art of Feminine Negotiation, How to Get What You Want from the Boardroom to the Bedroom. And that's a wrap for this episode. So now go renegotiate the life that you thought maybe you had to settle for. And remember that every moment is a negotiation. So choose presence, choose power, choose purpose. And I like to think this isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you're a part of it now. So together we can redefine power, one conversation and one negotiation at a time. So join the movement, lead the change. That's my invitation to you. And lead with heart, negotiating like the powerful force of nature that you are. And remember, feminine, regardless of your gender, masculine, feminine, all the spaces in between. It does not mean weak, it means unstoppable. Until next time, take care.